reporting how people around Trump say he's knocked off his bearings, he's disoriented by the contest with Harris, that he has been in a, quote, foul mood and, quote, ranting about Kamala Harris. All of this reflecting his view that things aren't going well. Remember what I said. He may not be known for truth, but this appears to be a part of political reality that he does understand and that he has also been making. The Times reports, quote, one forced error after another. Harris clearly has momentum right now. Now, there are many ways to measure this in politics. And if you follow this show, you may know that I've told you for years now that we don't cover national polls much in covering the Electoral College because the national polls don't correspond to how the vote is ultimately counted. And we also try to be very serious and careful when we do present you with data because, as you might remember from 2016 or any number of years, the narratives can take on a life of their own. So what I'm about to show you is basically a statistical tie in these key states, which is an improvement over what Biden was doing. The Harris campaign sees this as great news. Some have even referred to it as a lead, although, as you'll see, it's more like a tie. In Michigan, Harris has improved to 50% over Trump's 46%. A 4-point difference, but as I'm clearly showing you, the margin of error is larger than that. The Times has polling snapshot coming out of the other key so-called blue wall states. These are the ones that if Harris won all of these, she would win the election based on the coalition they've had in the past. Wisconsin, very similar. 50, 46, margin of error. And then Pennsylvania, where Harris was with her new running mate last week. Everyone knows it's a crucial swing state. You see, again, it's almost like we didn't change the polls, but we did. You see the line of Pennsylvania at the top, 50, 46, and also margin of error. So basically, she's improved, but it is a statistical tie. Advisors are telling Trump Harris will grow those kind of leads further, quote, coming out of the Democratic convention. That's what his own people are warning him, according to a brand new Axios report starting the week. That convention is now just a week away. And Kamala Harris is no stranger to the event. What it takes up on the main stage, those speeches are harder than they might look. I've covered those conventions inside the hall and out, and it's a big room. It's a stadium speech, even big candidates. If you're a statewide candidate, that might be the biggest stadium speech you've ever given, to say nothing of the national and international audience. But she's actually been doing this for a couple cycles. We want to show you all the way back to grassroots events around the conventions in 2008 to then taking that main stage in Obama's reelection.
A democracy, I believe, is defined and symbolized by many things, including a process that is fair and allows everyone to be heard.
The American dream belongs to all of us.
It is also defined by the existence of a Constitution and a love of that Constitution.
That's a dream we will put within reach of all our people. Thank you.
Harris going from the hallways to the main stage, just as Tim Walz went from the windows to the walls, if you know that one. This has been a pretty fast, consistent rise. And of course, the twist this year was her becoming the nominee. And that is confounding Trump. Democrats have long argued that Donald Trump's policies pull America into the past. Harris, though, now embodies that contrast in a whole new way, rising with this energy and this enthusiasm against an opponent 20 years her senior. Now, I told you we have that Trailblazer special coming up in just moments, but on this breaking news with all of the Trump issues, I want to bring in our political science professor from Fordham University, Christina Greer, the author of Black Ethnics. Welcome. This is how Trump is starting the week. A lot of those quotes were from people around him. What do you see in the campaign as we start the week?
Well, you know, as you reminded your audience, Ari, it's only been 3 weeks since Kamala Harris was elevated to the top of the ticket, and it's only been 6 days since Governor Walz was added to the ticket. And so the momentum is real. The money that's been pouring in is real, and not just big donations, but small donations, which actually can translate into votes because people are feeling invested and excited about this new race. It's a new race in many ways. Donald Trump's strategy was, you know, don't vote for the old guy because the black woman might become the president if something happens to him. Well, Joe Biden has stepped aside, and now Donald Trump is scrambling for a message, which is she's not that smart. That's not really resonating with a lot of voters who have seen her not just as the vice president for the past 3+ years. She was a senator for several years. She was the attorney general of the largest state in the nation. She has a very impressive resume, more impressive than a lot of people who run for the presidency. So his tactics aren't landing. He's scrambling. And we also know, and you all have talked about this, his choice of vice president is feeling very Sarah Palin-esque, is an impulse buy in many ways. And so J.D. Vance isn't adding to the ticket or the base. And so it's one unforced error after another. And we know Donald Trump spirals when things don't go his way.
Well, that's tough talk, as you know, Professor, because Palin was viewed as the kind of rare running mate who actually hurt a ticket rather than just being sort of ignored or sort of priced in. She was really seen as a drag in the end. But you mentioned that contrast with Biden, and Peggy Noonan, the former Reagan speechwriter, really talk about telling truth to her audience. The Wall Street Journal readers, generally conservative Wall Street types, they've generally rooted for Republicans. But she writes, Harris won her third week in a row. Trump spent most of the week having what a GOP strategist told Politico is a public nervous breakdown. Trump is 78. He hasn't been able to focus or make his case. And she asked the question, is he, in another irony of 2024, turning into Joe Biden? And Professor Greer, leaving aside the many different reactions people could have to Joe Biden, to her audience, she means that as a political liability.
Absolutely. I mean, the fundamental difference is Joe Biden loves and cares about this country, and Donald Trump loves and only cares about himself. But that being said, many people thought it was just going to be dinosaur versus dinosaur on November 5th. And that's not what we have anymore. And so we have Donald Trump, who lost in 2020. He lost the popular vote in 2016. And I do think, he's a very savvy politician. I will give him that. But he's not disciplined. And so, if he had discipline around him, he would sort of go with more traditional Republican talking points and a traditional way to run against Kamala Harris. That's not something that is in Donald Trump's wheelhouse. So he is thrown off because his strategy was, I can just sort of talk about Joe Biden and beat him up. And I'm the big man, and, I can essentially bully my way back into the White House, because he knows essentially it's the White House or the big house if he doesn't win. And so now he's completely discombobulated. And as we see more and more independents and weak-leaning Republicans move away from his type of rhetoric, I think the downward spiral has occurred. And so sadly, we're going to see a different type of politic and rhetoric from Donald Trump, which will be even more insulting and degrading of the office of the presidency.
Right. And as you say, as a political scientist, those are certain patterns. When down, you want debates. When down by a lot, you do anything to shake it up. You get desperate, you throw mud. And yet there's a lot of signs about how some of that is wearing thin. Professor Greer, I'd love to talk to you more, but I got these 4 trailblazers standing by. So thank you for kicking us off tonight.
Absolutely. All right. Anytime.
Thank you, Professor. Appreciate it. As mentioned, we have always the daily news. We started with your campaign update. But beyond that, there's something larger that's been happening. A lot of people clearly feel it. Maybe you do, too. The White House color line, which first fell with Barack Obama, is now being challenged by a woman of color. A big step considering how rare that is. We're looking at one trailblazer in the past I'm going to tell you about. It's also rare in the Senate and the governor's mansions, let alone the White House. Tonight, we're devoting the rest of tonight's show to exploring this history and the promise of these barrier-breaking candidacies, including some on our walls here. We've assembled 4 women leaders navigating this path that Kamala Harris is now on, from big city mayors and civil rights leaders and historians and people so knowledgeable about these issues. They are here for this special report and discussion on trailblazers at this inflection point in the campaign, right here on The Beat, when we're back in 90 seconds.
Kids won't be kids forever. So jump into what they love. Kinder Chocolate. Smooth milk chocolate with a creamy, milky center. In delicious, shareable little bars. Made for being a kid. Kinder Chocolate. Let that kid flag fly.
The best Labor Day mattress deals are happening now at Ashley. For a limited time, save up to $1,200 on Beautyrest Black adjustable mattress sets, up to $700 on Tempur-Pedic adjustable mattress sets, or up to $1,000 on Purple adjustable mattress sets. Plus, get 0% interest for 5 years on in-store purchases with no minimum purchase required. With the best mattress brands under one roof, Ashley has you and your sleep covered. Shop more Labor Day mattress deals in-store and online.
I think the issue that will determine who wins this election is the question of freedom. Freedom over your own body for women, freedom to read, freedom for parents of LGBTQ kids to parent them, whether you're talking about state races, local races, congressional races, or the race for president. The freedom question is actually the most important question on the ballot, really.
When we mobilize, nations change. And when we vote, we make history.
It's true, no matter how you vote. And we are now turning to a special report and panel discussion on this historic barrier that Kamala Harris has smashed, the first black woman to ever be a major party's presidential nominee in America's 248-year history. You see her standing out on this list of recent nominees, and of course it goes all the way back with her trailblazing campaign, now driving enthusiasm from our world of politics all the way to culture as it caps a long fight for representation.
Show me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like!
I stand before you today to proudly announce I am now officially the Democratic nominee for President of the United States.
That is as strong a start as you could ask for.
I think she's going to win. She seems very smart, very educated. She's vice president, and she'll do good.
Not going back can mean a rejection of the policies that have oppressed so many people in recent and far-gone history. It can also be a call to go forward towards a more enlightened and diverse leadership in this country, in contrast to the status quo. And while the color barrier fell at the White House now over 15 years ago with Obama, most racial breakthroughs have come through male leaders, reflecting how men held most leadership positions in the establishment and the civil rights movement alike. When the major leaders of most civil rights groups were gathering in the 60s and 70s, here's one such gathering, you would see a type of diversity, but you would also see all men, a template that's extended later in politics as some of those very successful and qualified leaders moved into politics and office. Take activist John Lewis, who went from civil rights work to becoming a congressman and really a national figure in the Democratic Party. Kamala Harris recently shared this image of her literally looking up to the late Lewis as memorialized in this mural. There is a great appreciation for what he did, but the barriers that were broken and the path that he paved from the civil rights movement into politics came out of that group I showed you, of men in civil rights. There's a different history for black women who also played a role in civil rights and activism and organizing, like Ella Baker.
I have had about 40 or 50 years of struggle. I had to learn that hitting back with my fist one individual was not enough. It takes organization. It takes dedication. It takes the willingness to stand by and do what has to be done.
Takes all that and more, and if it takes organization, those women who, as I'm reminding you, were in the struggle were not necessarily always given the organization or backing to then go directly into politics or business or other extended activities in American life. Those women faced more hurdles than men in politics. In total, black women made it